Welcome back, Brookings Bio students, to another installment of cell parts. Today we're going to talk about endoplasmic reticulum. Endoplasmic reticulum, or ER, is a network of hollow membrane tubes that run throughout the cell. And basically there's two kinds of ER and they're named for what they look like under the microscope when you look at them. Some of the tubing is very smooth looking on the surface. We call it smooth ER. And some of the tubing is very bumpy or rough looking on the surface, have all these little bumps all over, and that's called the rough ER. And so we're going to talk about those two kinds of ER and what they do for our cell. The rough endoplasmic reticulum, or rough ER for short, what's making it rough is ribosomes. Remember in our last slideshow we talked about ribosomes being our protein factory, and if ribosomes are making proteins for transport, export out of the cell, they are attached to this membrane system called the rough ER. And they're going to make the proteins on those ribosomes and then put them into the little space inside the tubing. When we think of transport, moving things around inside the cell, the job of the rough ER is transport, sometimes called the intracellular highway. Because it's moving things around inside the cell. If you look at the smooth or rough ER under a microscope, you see these little ribosomes, the little bumps attached to the surface of those membrane tubes, and they run throughout the cell. Ribosomes are making our proteins and then inserting the proteins into this tubing and sends it around where it needs to go inside the cell. If you've ever been to the bank or one of those drive-up windows where you can put your deposit in the little tube and then send it with a vacuum into the bank or into the pharmacy to get your prescription refilled, think of that tubing as a transport system, and once something is in the tube, it can be transported anywhere inside the cell. If you look at the other kind of ER, the smooth ER, it's smooth on the surface because it doesn't have ribosomes. Oh dear, sorry. Doesn't have ribosomes attached to it. And smooth ER has enzymes, contains enzymes in this tubing to do a variety of metabolic functions. Remember metabolism, some of that chemistry that's happening inside of you. Variety of functions depending on what the cell's job is. So if, for example, one of the functions of smooth ER is to make steroids for you. Remember we put things like cholesterol in our cell membranes. If we're animal cells, other kinds of steroids are made in the smooth ER. Think steroid hormones. We talked about things like testosterone when we talked about steroids and molecules in our very first chapter. Important in regulating calcium in muscle cells. What causes a muscle contraction when the muscles contract is the release of calcium from the smooth ER inside the cell. And so very important in controlling, regulating muscle function. Smooth ER also destroys toxic substances in liver cells. Very important in breaking down toxins are things that are bad for you. Toxic things are poisonous. Your body makes some things we want to get rid of, like nitrogen waste comes from our cells as they're doing their metabolic functions. Liver works to break down those nitrogen waste toxins and put them into our urine to get rid of them. Also breaks down anything that gets into your body that your body wants to break down. For example, if you have a headache and you take a Tylenol or an aspirin, 4 hours later you have to take another one, and the reason is that your liver has broken down that medicine and it's not working anymore in your body. You have to take another pill. Other kinds of substances that are bad for you, think drugs, alcohol, other kinds of illegal drugs, they are sent to your liver to be broken down, and that's one of the reasons that people who abuse drugs or alcohol for long periods of time actually end up with liver damage, because your body is taking those drugs, the alcohol, to your liver to break it down, and actually can cause liver damage. Okay, let's get some things in our flipbook. This is an internal network of membrane tubing that runs throughout our cell. Both smooth and rough ER can be found in cells. What makes the rough ER rough is the ribosomes that are attached to that membrane system that are making proteins. They're inserted into the spaces in the tubing in the rough ER, and they're modified, transported to Golgi bodies for export out of the cell. Remember we talked about glycoproteins in our first chapter. They're those recognized self proteins that are part of cell membranes. They're proteins with sugars attached, and proteins are made and then modified. The sugars groups are attached to it to make the glycoprotein, and some of that happens in our rough ER. Smooth ER makes membrane lipids like steroids, regulates the calcium in our muscle cells, and helps to break down toxins in liver cells. Okay, let's go to our cell picture and see if we can find some endoplasmic reticulum to color. So I'm going to pick a new color. Remember, we're color coding this, and I think in some of those slideshows I haven't done a very good job of reminding you to fill in your name labels with your cell part color. So if you have some name labels that you haven't done that on, I'm going to ask you to go back and do that. And I'm going to pick a new color here to do my ER. We colored our ribosomes that were attached to the ER a dark color. So now that I can do this with a lighter color, I can be able to see both my membranes and my endoplasmic reticulum underneath. So this membrane-y area here that has the polka dots, has the ribosomes attached, is rough ER. I have some more here. Notice not all of this now. This part over here doesn't have those ribosomes attached. So we're going to color this part with the polka dots. That's the rough ER. And notice I have some other membranes over here that also don't have polka dots. It looks a little different than this. This is a Golgi body, the little pancake stack. So we don't want to color that one. We're going to talk about Golgi in our next slideshow. Let's look in our plant cell. Here's some more ribosomes attached to rough ER. We're looking for the polka dots. That helps us to pick out the rough from the smooth. There's some more over here. Okay, I'm going to pick a new color to be my smooth ER color. Oh wait, let's go back, and before I do that, let's fill in our name, rough ER. Don't want to forget to do that. Okay, now I'm going to pick a new color to be my smooth ER. And we're going to color this tubing now. Notice no polka dots though. That's what makes it smooth ER. And remember, we don't want to color this guy. This is our Golgi body. That's looks a little different, kind of like pancakes all stacked up. So smooth ER, there's a little bit in this cell. There's a little bit over here. No polka dots attached to it. No ribosomes. There's a little down here. Did I get them all? Yep. Oh, don't color that one. That's a Golgi body. Look for the pancake stacks. Okay, I think I got them. So smooth ER, rough ER. If you want to go back and do your name label with both colors, remember we did that on our cytoskeleton, our microtubules. If you want to go back and do your name label on both colors, so I know that both of those are endoplasmic reticulum, you can do that. Okay, I think we're done. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for Golgi bodies.